Hey, and welcome to Trail Trials, the video review section of iRunFar.com. My name is Travis Lyles, and in today's video we're going to take a look at the Sportiva Bushido. Bushido stands for the Way of the Warrior, and this shoe was really about setting out to create a mid-weight to lower weight, low profile, highly aggressive, outsole, durable upper type of shoe that you would reach for when it was really getting nasty out there without having to carry a brick on your foot to protect you from the elements. So with that in mind, what we're going to do is take a look at the 9.1 ounce 6mm drop Bushido from the outsole, from the midsole to the upper, talk about the performance and some of the runs that I did with it, and see if it really holds up to its claims. So let's start off with the outsole. And what you're going to notice on this are a couple of things. One, you're going to have Sportiva's kind of classic approach shoe or climbing shoe type rubber. So we've got some very sticky rubber here in the middle. Works really great on lots of different terrain. Obviously you have lugs there for traction, but also really sticky. So when rocks are wet, these tend to grip really well. You're going to have a slightly different kind of compound here on the outside with our yellow lugs, which are going to be maybe more for endurance, right? You're going to land on some of these outside portions when you're running, right? On the inside or on the outside of the shoe. See that in both the front and the back, probably for your transition as well. And then you'll also see that a little bit of these lugs extend up into some of the midsole portions. And the idea behind that is to provide traction even in off-camber situations. In the midfoot, you can see some of these red spots in between some cutouts of the shoe. That's going to be your rock plate in the forefoot. So it doesn't extend all the way across, but this is pretty dense rubber that's on here, and I would say a majority of folks that end up with some sort of bruise or something along those lines are going to get that, really in this midfoot section versus in the heel. Plus, heels are usually a little taller, so that cushioning is going to absorb that. One of the more interesting portions that we have here is this Tpu Cradle, and it starts here on the bottom of the shoe, and you can kind of see this grid looking or slightly raised bumps that exist and actually wrap all the way up into the midsole. So we'll talk about that here and of course there, but the idea behind this is to start forming really a shell or a cage that your foot is going to sit down inside of, and it's really going to lock that foot in. So that's going to start here at the bottom, and then as we move our way to the back, we can kind of see some of the more traditional types of things that we're used to seeing on trail running shoes, kind of that line back here for braking, and lugs being spaced differently, kind of downhill versus uphill types of lugs. So overall, a really good tread. You can see they are slightly deep, not as deep as something like a Crosslight, but overall, I would say an above average in terms of aggressiveness, in terms of traction, and I could really feel these things bite on rocky terrain. Doing hill repeats in these, I really felt super secure, even on gravelly or scree type of areas. These things tended to dig in and bite really well, and I really had a lot of confidence wearing these. So let's move on to our midsole. So a couple of things here. One is we'll just kind of talk about the general midsole, which you'll see with this black foam, and that's going to continue all the way around the shoe, here to the back and the heel, and then of course continuing through all the way around. That cage though that we talked about earlier, that TPU frame, you can see that sort of extend up. And that's going to extend about partially up the shoe onto both the outside of your forefoot as well as in the arch area. And what this does is really lock your foot in place. So your foot sits down inside of this. So if you're hammering really hard on turns, it locks in, doesn't tend to let your foot move around too much. Something that in lighter weight shoes that does tend to happen, at least for me, is I get a lot of sloppiness if I'm really hammering switchbacks or something like that. Did not notice that at all inside of when wearing these. As we move around, we'll notice on both sides there's these little bars here. This is something that also existed on the Sportiva Crosslight 2.0, and it's a little bit of a stability cage. So there's some plastic frame within here that's going to really help right the foot a little bit better. It's not overly aggressive in its pronation control or anything along those lines, but it just adds a little bit of stability, so it's not just single density foam that exists here. You have a little bit of a cage that's going to keep some support on that back part of the shoe as well as back here, so more of that stride, back part of your gait, you're going to hit that back here. All right, now let's transition up to the upper. So we'll start off at the toe cap. And what you're going to notice here is that you have a toe cap that really extends across the entire portion of your foot. A lot of shoes will just stop kind of on the apex. This has a really broad one that's going to help with your pinky toe getting messed up as well as your big toe. The one thing I'll note though is that even though that this has a good toe box or bumper, the toe box itself is a little bit low. So this took a little while for me to get adjusted to the shape of this. Generally a more lower profile, so if you're someone that likes a really big open toe box, it's going to take a little bit for that to happen. Over time, probably the 115 or so miles, this is stretched and stretched and stretched more. Now it's a really natural fit and it doesn't bother me. But the first couple of times wearing it, I really felt like my toes were pushed down just a little bit. As we work our way kind of around the medial and the lateral parts of the shoe, you're going to see some added reinforcements on some of those high pressure points. So again, when you're cornering, if you're running fast or a big midfoot striker, these are huge blowout points on most shoes. Sportiva addressed that with putting this little reinforced suede along both the inside and the outside of the shoe. We also have extending up from that Tpu Cradle is this mask, this plastic mask that exists here. This is not stitched on, which is nice, so it's laminated here, which means you're not going to have a bunch of pressure points or seams to worry about. That's going to extend all the way to the midsole, and then of course all the way up to your lacing points here to really wrap, and when you're going to pull on that, it's going to create a nice tight or maybe secure fit is a better way to put that around your foot. That of course exists on both sides. The shoe is pretty much fully gusseted, so it has a really booty or boot-like fit. You put your foot in there. All of this is guarded in terms of, you don't really have seams anyway, but there's a booty on the inside of this that you can sort of see stretching out here. And of course on the other side as well. That's going to be those yellow pieces in there. In terms of externally seeing that, it's going to come up to about here and of course all the way down to where the tongue originates. The tongue is lightly padded, really putting the most amount of padding in the areas that are important, right? So where your laces are to reduce fatigue on the top of your foot. And I'm somebody that likes to use that back lace, and there's still plenty of room for the laces to come across and not creep up and end up over later on. And then lastly, from the heel cup, you have a very nice padded heel cup, though I'd say in terms of comparing it to most shoes, it's a little bit tall. But it's well padded and it's flexible here at the top. I didn't feel it interfering with anything when I was running downhills or anything along those lines. And you also have a structured heel cup that exists in this as well. So overall, really a lot of protection, a lot of work to keep this shoe durable, but still keeping it in a moderately lightweight package. In closing, I think La Sportiva did an excellent job with the Bushido. This is a shoe that falls in between really a lightweight and a midweight shoe, which we don't see a lot of. It has a highly aggressive, highly grippy outsole, sock-like fit that really locks your foot in, an upper that so far, after some pretty nasty runs on it and lots of high-pressure downhills and busting around corners, doesn't seem to be showing any major signs of seams blowing out. So really pleased with that. Couple downsides, I don't feel like it transitioned super great on roads or kind of flatter areas. It took a little while to break in, but once that happened, was really good, and the water doesn't drain quite as well as I would have hoped. But outside of that, I think for a mid-weight, low-profile shoe that you can really just hit some aggressive terrain and feel confident in the steps you're going to take, La Sportiva really hit the mark with this. So, any questions, comments, place those below this video. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.